That's the sound of the police. Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of the beast. Whoop, whoop.
Today I'm going to interview Mr. Levy about his life of being a cop. What made you want to be a police officer?
I went into law enforcement in the civilian world because I was a military policeman in the Air Force. I started my police career when I was 18 in the U.S. Air Force, and I got married just before I got out of the Air Force, so I needed a job, and there were lots of opportunities for civilian law enforcement jobs. So I had already had the skills set, so I applied it to that.
What do you think makes up an officer?
Well, there are several things. The first one is you have to have the ability to want to help people. You have to be honest, and you also have to have good integrity, which is, strength of character. You have to also be a little disciplined. You can't take yourself too seriously, but at the same time, you also have to understand that there's going to be a lot of things happening that you cannot control, and you have the discipline and the fortitude to understand your limitations as well as your duty, which is, to enforce the laws and protect people, but also to guarantee their rights that are afforded them under our Constitution.
What's the craziest thing that happened when you were on duty?
Well, I worked in Ocean City for 25 years, so you're asking me for a judgment on something that happens nightly. Been a couple of crazy things. I'd say there's one of the most stressful, crazy times I was ever involved in. I was a mounted patrol officer, and we had, for whatever reason, a Ku Klux Klan membership rally on July 4th in 1992. And myself and 3 other mounted officers were assigned to that detail, as well as just about every police officer on the Eastern Shore that could be there. And the Klan came in and they were doing their membership drive, and this was on July 4th on a very nice day. And there were quite a few thousand people on the south end of the boardwalk not too happy that the Ku Klux Klan was there. The irony of this whole thing is the Klan, which as everybody knows is a racist organization, was being protected by myself of Jewish descent. They don't like Jews. And one of the other officers that was in the middle of it was a black man named Officer Brown, and Officer Brown was there on the back of a horse as well. And we kind of looked at each other and says, this is absolutely the craziest thing I've ever been involved in. The Klan left after 20 minutes. They weren't well received by the Marylanders down on the boardwalk, and rightfully so.
What made you want to teach students to become cops?
Well, I was a law enforcement trainer when I was a civilian police officer. One of my duties and responsibilities, besides doing police work, was training police officers, and I still do that part-time at the police academy, our regional police academy, which is at Warwick College. But I thought that this would be a tremendously positive, productive segue out of civilian law enforcement, and it would be a good way for me to take all my experiences and knowledge and information and relate them to students at the high school level and impress upon them the values, the core values of police work, which are, honor, integrity, and discipline, because we all know cops do not lie, cheat, or steal, right, Carly?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they shouldn't, because we don't want our police lie, cheating, and stealing, and we have incidents of that now, and it's gotten so bad we want to put cameras on our cops because we don't believe them anymore. So, to me, that's a breakdown and a failure of the system, and if I can help shore that system back to its original roots of being a very prestigious, very dignified career field, then I want to start at the lowest level that I can get into it at, and that's at the high school level.
In your opinion, what is the best advice to giving someone that's trying to be a cop?
People who want to enter this career field have to understand that it's not just a career field. It is a lifestyle. It is a complete way of life. It's a conviction. You have to truly believe in the good of people and the good work that you're doing. It is very easy to become cynical, to just kind of get into that negative mode because typically people don't call the police when they're having a good time. They only call the police when something bad has happened. So for young folks like yourself, first of all, you have to understand that you have to be an honest person. Everybody makes mistakes, but that's a mistake. if you lie about it, then it changes the mistake. So honesty is a huge part of it. The other thing is you really do have to understand that everything you do from the point you decide as a young adult like you guys are right now, between 17 and 18, everything you do from here on out is going to affect the decision to hire you as a police officer, because you're building your background, you're building your resume from this point forward. Anything negative, drug use, alcohol use, crazy driving habits, juvenile problems, anything, violence, fights, domestics with boyfriends or girlfriends, all those things are going to play into a building of your character and your personality. And again, we don't trust a lot of our police officers, so the answer we think is to put cameras on them. I disagree with that to an extent. I think the answer is to make better police officers. I think it's time to go back to basics and say, hey, it's time for us to really have integrity again and start filtering out the bad apples in our own tree. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't think that we do such a great job of that. I think we do a lot of pushing it to the bottom of the pile kind of thing and hiding it from view. Every cop who's in a police department knows who the bad cops are. And if you got bad cops, they need to go. They absolutely need to go. Some are better than others, but some just don't need to be there. And we know who they are, and they need to go.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, what's the scariest thing that has happened to you on duty?
There have been a lot of very, very scary incidents. I think the worst incident I ever experienced was we had it was in the summer. I was still a mounted officer, and one of the tactics we used years ago to clear our beaches late at night, because in Ocean City you're not supposed to be on the beach after midnight, is to have one mounted officer go up the beach and tell people to leave the beach, because we have beach sweepers out there and there's an ordinance, and then they get up and they leave the beach. Another mounted patrol officer would follow on the boardwalk about 2-3 blocks behind me, or behind the lead officer, and he would make sure that those people didn't turn around and go back on the beach. You know what I mean? Because people don't really look for a horse and rider. They generally look for a car or a foot officer. So it was a good tactic. Well, I had some folks clear the beach, and they went back to their hotel room, and everything's fine. I crossed Coastal Highway, where our stable was located, up at 28th Street for a few years. And just as I was entering the stable, I heard an officer call for backup. There was a shooting about 2 blocks from me. And basically what had happened was somebody with a drunk guy with a shotgun, intoxicated guy with a shotgun, tried to rob 2 men at their hotel, shot and killed one of the men, and then took off. And the officer was screaming pursuit, and they were heading right for me. Just as I was rounding the corner to get there, the officer who was chasing him, the mounted officer, had to shoot and kill the suspect from the top of his horse. I was incredibly scared for that moment in my life, because let's face it, when you're on the back of a horse and people are shooting, you become a big target. So I didn't know what had happened, and when I finally got there, it was over, and everything had essentially been terminated. But the officer wound up surviving the confrontation. The individual was unfortunately killed, but we had a victim that the suspect had killed also. So we actually had 2 fatal shootings in that night. One was police initiated, the other one was suspect initiated.
Thank you, Mr. Levy. This has been a Warriors Communication production on the life of a cop.
That's the sound of the police. That's the sound of the beast.